Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Jeanelle Slade.
And I'm Russ Riesinger. A head-on crash tonight near Huntley takes 2 lives.
Both drivers died on scene after their vehicles apparently crashed head-on just northeast of Huntley.
Montana Highway Patrol still on the scene tonight, trying to figure out exactly what happened.
Now, the crash just east of Jute Street on Highway 312 was first reported around 6:30 this evening. Montana Highway Patrol Trooper Barry Mitchell says the 2 males are from the local area. Their ages and identities are not yet being released.
And Mitchell says it appears a truck and the other vehicle careened into each other. The incident shutting down traffic in both directions just north of Huntley. Ambulance, firefighters, and police all responding to that scene.
Well, the second suspect in Monday's early morning shooting in Shepherd is now charged.
39-year-old James Higgins faces 2 charges of assault with a weapon for his involvement in a shootout on Bees Lane that left a man and a boy with gunshot wounds. Higgins was taken into custody yesterday in Billings. Yellowstone County Sheriff Mike Lindner says Higgins was arrested without incident but had a possible bullet wound. Higgins
is being held at the Yellowstone County Detention Facility on $100,000 bond. Officials are also investigating the possibility of a third suspect.
Well, we are just hours away from the 75th anniversary of the D-Day invasion at Normandy.
Now, shoots filled the skies over the French coast today in remembrance. Observers watched on as paratroopers dropped from the sky. Now, the one you see here, 97-year-old Tom Rice from San Diego, made the similar jump on June 6, 1944.
And he says he's jumping again to honor his fellow veterans. Even at his age, he jokes it's easier this time because no one is shooting at him.
Also completing today's mission, Miss Montana and other historical aircraft that make up the D-Day Squadron.
After spending the past couple of days in final practice jumps, the planes flew across the English Channel to drop their main invasion force of jumpers over the French coast. The weather hasn't been perfect, but so far the flights have been going very well.
Miss Montana, the restored C-47, was the 6th plane in formation, dropping its paratroopers, including a number of Montana smoke jumpers, around 11 o'clock this morning Montana time. Now, thousands of people gazed up into the cloudy evening skies to watch the amazing sight.
We had our Montana jumpers on board, and it was just so fun to see them, because they've worked for this too and prepared for it and spent time and money to get ready and helped us with the airplane. I mean, they've been part of this team from the beginning, and it just was great to see them. They were so excited. That excitement was contagious, and we just couldn't be happier to have completed this part of the mission, and now we get to do something else.
Miss Montana is scheduled to be among the dozen or so planes to do the presidential flyover above Omaha Beach on the coastline where thousands lost their lives. Well, there were hundreds of military members from Montana who played a part in the Allied invasion of Normandy, some who never came home again.
The success in turning the tide in World War II coming with great sacrifice. Tonight, we hear the story of one paratrooper from Laurel who lost his life during the invasion, but not before saving the lives of other American soldiers.
And then one day I didn't have nothing to do, and I dug it out and started going through it all and was pretty amazed.
It was about 5 years ago that Dan Couts first took a good look inside an envelope that his father had passed on to him, and it took him straight back to 1944.
And of course, that was a time period where you didn't talk about it.
The papers inside, including the dreaded Western Union telegram alerting the family that Couts' uncle, Private Henry Couts of Laurel, had been killed in action in France. Couts was one of thousands of 101st Airborne paratroopers who landed in Normandy on D-Day. The family didn't find out about his death until a month after it happened and didn't learn the details until that fall when they received a letter from the private's commanding officer.
He parachuted in on D-Day, and their plane was off track a little bit, so of course when they parachuted in, they were off track.
The group spent 3 days trying to fight their way back to the rest of their unit, taking some German prisoners in the process when they again came under fire.
And my uncle was trying to use them as a shield to get the other men by, and it did work. It got the other men by, but then my uncle was killed.
The letter goes on to say that Private Couts died a soldier's death and that his company would always honor his memory.
Of course, he received a Purple Heart because anybody wounded or passing away receives that. The one thing that I thought he should have had was at least a Bronze Star or more because of what he'd done. He saved these other guys, risking his life, and got them through.
Private Henry Kautz, just one of the many unsung American heroes who gave their all when the fate of the world hung in the balance.
And Henry never came home. He's buried there in France with so many others. Our coverage of the 75th anniversary of D-Day continues tomorrow here on Q2 with more Montana ties to that invasion that changed the course of history. Tomorrow night at 10, we're going to introduce you to Bud LeCount. He's a Billings man who did make it home from Normandy to tell his story. And it truly is an amazing one. That's coming up tomorrow night at 10. And CBS will cover the ceremonies from Normandy early tomorrow morning. You can watch that live beginning at 3 a.m. right here on Q2.
And turning now to the weather scene here at home, Chief Forecaster Bob McGuire here to show us when and where that rain is going to fall. And snow in some areas of Montana?
In some areas, yeah, especially above the 6,000-foot level up our mountains. Let me show you what we have for today, though. Our thunderstorm outlook showed just some isolated thunder showers right along the state line with Wyoming. They're kind of similar to what we had yesterday. Now, tomorrow, look at this. Increased risk of severe storms moving from southwestern Montana just west of Billings all the way up towards the Glasgow area. This is where we could see some large hail, heavy rain, and damaging winds. Of course, in the Billings area, it's a marginal risk of severe thunderstorms. And then watch what happens. On Friday, the whole thing just kind of jumps over us. And so the severe thunderstorms will be over there in extreme eastern Montana. So here's how the whole thing will shake out. Of course, today we had mostly sunny skies across eastern Montana, the south central part of the state. Then on Thursday afternoon, about 4:30, here come your showers and thunderstorms moving into the Billings area. These are the ones that might be kind of severe for the Billings area, but I think most of the big stuff will be out to the west. Then on Friday afternoon, look at this. That's snow up in the mountains, and you'll see scattered rain showers down here in the plains. We'll have more of what's coming up this weekend in a few more minutes.
All right. Thanks so much, Bob.
Well, as Governor Steve Bullock touts his fight of dark money on the presidential campaign trail, he's again taking his fight to court and suing the IRS.
Along with the Montana Department of Revenue and the state of New Jersey, the governor says the IRS ended a decades-old requirement forcing social welfare groups, labor unions, and businesses to disclose major campaign donors. The Washington Post says the case was heard today in a federal courtroom in Great Falls. Bullock says the rule change undermines democracy.
The IRS says states do not have the authority to challenge their federal policies.
Now the case is in the hands of a judge, and we'll let you know when that ruling comes down.
A Roundup man dubbed the AK-47 Bandit will spend the next 35 years in prison for an armed robbery at a Nebraska bank. 40-year-old Richard Gathercole stole about $90,000 from the bank, but is now forced to pay nearly $400,000 in fines for his role in that 2014 robbery. As part of a plea agreement, federal prosecutors in Kansas, Iowa, Washington, and California agreed to drop robbery and other charges against Gathercole for crimes dating back to 2012. Gathercole earned the AK-47 Bandit moniker because it was his weapon of choice in that series of robberies. His case made its way to Montana after Gathercole was recorded from his Nebraska jail cell telling a woman to remove guns from his home in Roundup. That's where federal agents found 7 explosive devices, ammunition, and books on how to build explosives.
A couple seconds of distracted driving sent a van careening into a mail truck this morning on Rimrock Road, sending the mail carrier to the hospital. Billings Police Sergeant Pat Curry tells Q2 the driver of the white van, a Billings man, was tending to his dog when the van veered off the road and slammed into the postal truck at the corner of Rimrock Road and Michigan Street. It happened around 11:30. A postal spokesman tells us tonight the employee is being assessed, but it appears his injuries are not serious. As for the mail, postal employees gathered it and secured it quickly. It must now go through a screening process, so delivery will be delayed a couple days. The van driver was treated on scene for minor injuries and then cited for the crash.
Well, after years of sitting vacant, a $16.5 million mansion nestled in the Ironwood subdivision with a storied past is on the market.
Dubbed the largest home in Billings, the 30,000 square foot home comes complete with 10 bedrooms, 19 bathrooms, a 14-car garage, an indoor shooting range, 3 swimming pools, and a bowling alley. You may remember the developer, Larry Wayne Price, was charged with a host of felony charges, including defaulting on loans and an attempt to fake his own kidnapping. Price is currently in federal custody.
Don Maddox with Engel and Volker's Western Frontier out of Missoula is taking on the Canyon Woods Drive property. Maddox is no stranger to selling multi-million-dollar homes. She sold a private island property on Flathead Lake for $13.9 million in 2018.
Coming up on tonight's 10 o'clock news, Montana and Mexico may not share a border, but they share an important trade relationship. We will take a look.
Plus, these boots are made for walking. Find out how you can take a piece of Montana anywhere your feet may travel.
And tonight in sports, Montana's basketball all-stars are in town. They'll play Wyoming at MSU Billings instead of Rocky Friday. Scott is going to tell us why.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Breen. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.